All right. Here we are.
Okay,
live.
everybody.
Every time we go live, all I hear is what's his name? Well, fuck it. We'll do it live.
We'll do it live.
Who
Need
was
to
that?
get that clip.
Bill O'Reilly? Is that who
Bill
it is?
O'Reilly.
All right.
That's right. Fuck it. We'll do it live. We'll do it live.
I hear that every time we
I
do
know.
a live stream in
It's
my
in the
head.
back of my head. Yep.
It's
we are
infected
live. We are
my
doing
brain.
it live right now.
We are doing it live.
Yes.
Yes, we are. Hey, what's up, Lisa? Watching on YouTube, right? So we're on where are we? We're on Facebook. We're in the Heresy After Hours group, of course. We are on the Choircast YouTube channel, and we are with April Ajoy. April has a new book. This is the last thing we're doing in the live sphere, the live podcast sphere before the election. I'm honored and I'm terrified and I'm every emotion and it's a Sunday, so I'm trying. I have farming to do later, and I'm just going to put my head down and not think about it. But for now, I'm going to think about it.
Yeah, welcome, April.
Thank you. I echo that anxiety.
Yeah.
My anxiety has anxiety right now, I think.
Yeah, my anxiety's got a whole team of people.
So let's just dig into that a little bit, April. What are you anxious about, and what forms does it take of your anxiety?
Oh, I mean, obviously, I'm very anxious about the election. And honestly, I mean, I have anxieties for either outcome. Obviously, I want Kamala to win. That's who I voted for.
Yeah.
I voted early. So I do not want Trump to win. I think 4 more years of Trump would be absolutely terrible for the country and Christianity. I think Christian nationalism the door will be opened wide open for Christian nationalism to take power, which it's already happening in a lot of red states across the country. But then on the flip side, if Kamala wins, knock on wood, I hope that happens. Trump's already setting the stage to do some sort of January 6th thing again. And I don't know exactly what he would do, but him and Mike Johnson are teasing some secret plan.
Secret plan.
So I don't there's going to be lawsuits. I think it's going to be really drug out a long time. But yeah, that's kind of, I don't know. That's how I'm feeling.
Yeah, that's what's scary. Like my anxiety is sort of like, I'll be okay during the day, just going through my routine. But then, then now and again, surprisingly, I'll just have this panic attack of like, oh my God, what's going to happen in a few days? Because if Trump wins, it starts implementing Project 2025, and then he'll start with ABC, MSNBC. He'll start with the late night comedians. He'll start putting them in jail, or maybe he'll execute some generals. But eventually, he'll work his way down, to like little podcasts like ours that mock him and point out the dangers.
I ain't said shit. I've never done nothing. I don't know what you're talking about.
My friend. It's all recorded. I've even written books. You've written books. You've written.
I don't know
books,
what you're talking
right?
about.
So it's sort of like, gee, do I want to go to jail? Should I flee to Mexico? I'm in Texas, so I could be in Mexico in probably 45 minutes if I had to. But,
Oh
you
my
know, or do you
gosh.
stay and become part of the resistance? You know what I mean?
I know.
What does that
I
even
mean,
look like?
I definitely have thought about that too. The thing that I keep thinking about is I think like the most extreme MAGA people, the people that support Trump, like they're diehard, they're all in, they think Trump's this messiah.
Yeah.
Um, I don't I like as far as numbers, there's way more people that are not that. And even
Yeah.
a lot of the people that I know are still voting for Trump, they're not extreme MAGA, they're voting Republican because of abortion or
Right.
whatever
Same way
else.
I've always voted Republican. Right.
Right, exactly. And I think the majority are still not like super culty about it. So I would think I would hope, my hope is that all the mostly normal people, even if they do support Trump because they just can't vote Democrat, if they saw that happening, I would think that they would say, this is actually not okay. This is not America. This is not
Yeah.
free speech. This is not
Yeah.
a free country. That's what I'm holding on to. And at the end of the day, in my experience, our worst fears, the things that keep us up at night, are usually not the reality that happens.
I hope you're right. Dear God,
I
April,
love
please
I
tell me
love
you're right.
your optimism. I love
Yeah.
your optimism. I wonder when that happens though, because like he's done a lot of terrible things that people don't seem to care about. Like
And threaten the whole
27 women at
yeah.
minimum have come out and said he has sexually assaulted them. And so that's where I wonder, like, okay, I'm with you. Like, I want to be an optimist, but prove when that's going to happen, folks. Like, prove when you're going. Like,
Yeah.
I've been thinking. I don't even know what to say to my own family. Like, okay, show me when you will stand and do that.
Right. Where's the line? That's what
Like,
I'm waiting to
you
see.
haven't done it
Where is the
yet,
line
so
that
I
you would
Yeah.
hope
say, okay,
you're
no, I
right.
can't support that.
Yeah. I mean, I personally know I have family members that are in their 60s that have never voted for a Democrat
Oh
because they've
yeah,
been
me
very
too.
conservative and
Yep.
voted Kamala for the first time this
Yeah.
year. And I know a lot of people that have moved from the Republican Party, even people that voted for Trump in before that are not
Yeah.
voting for Trump this time around. I don't personally know anyone that was a Biden supporter voting Trump. I hear about them. I
Yeah.
feel
No, I
like
don't.
the only new voters
No.
that Trump has got are young men that have aged up. Maybe
Yeah.
some young women if their families are really conservative too.
Right.
And then some like the more liberal Obama voters that just got sucked into like COVID vaccine conspiracies.
Yes.
But beyond that, I don't know what new voters Trump has. Like he's pretty
Right.
much alienated just about everybody. And it's interesting the campaign strategy because I don't feel like he's actually going
No.
or he's not trying to win anybody
No.
over.
No. No, he keeps his campaign has consistently really only focused on people who are already crazy about him, right?
Mhm.
He does these MAGA rallies and everyone's got the red hat on and flying the big stupid Trump flags and all that kind of stuff. Like he's pandering only to that ultra right-wing conservative white supremacist base, right? And he just keeps doubling down on it, right? The Madison Square Garden thing is like, again, he's done so many things. Even going back to the first time he ran for president, if you just add it all up, he just consistently does so many things that even one of those things would have ended the campaign of any other person running for office, you know, if it wasn't him, right? Just
Yeah.
even just pick one thing, right? The Madison Square Garden thing. Oh man, that's it, game over. But whatever, right? So many other things that he's done and said, and it doesn't matter, right? It just keeps getting sane washed. And oh, yeah, you know, like when he's what was the one he said? This was a couple of weeks ago. This is the other thing about it. It time just collapses, right? It's like things that happened a week ago feel like 6 months ago because there's every day there's a week's worth of nonsense.
Mhm.
Um, but it was a couple of weeks ago when he was talking about the enemy within.
Yeah.
And he was saying, you know, there's an enemy within. They're worse than China. They're worse than Russia. And we might have to use the National Guard, maybe even call in the military. And well, well, you know, Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff, like, okay, you just said you're willing to use the military to go after the enemy within, and then people you named are like, you know, like senators and congressmen. What the hell are you talking about? And his own people are going on television saying, well, he didn't say that. No, he did say that. We all heard him say that.
Yeah.
So, that's the kind of thing that's really scary. And when you were talking, April, about friends of yours that for the first time voted Democrat, right? Republicans who voted Republicans their whole life and just cast their first vote for Democrat.
We got a comment from Julie that echoes that right here.
Yeah, I'm curious. Do you know what was it? What was the thing that made them say, for the first time, I'm going to vote blue?
For one, I know it was January 6th.
Good.
Another one, I know they kind of reluctantly voted for Trump before because they felt like they had to.
Kind of held their nose. I heard that from a lot of people.
Yeah, held their nose and voted for Trump.
Yeah.
And then I think just over the years, as Trump continued to get worse and worse, and the people that I know, I've been in their life, so they've actually listened to me a little bit when I've tried to explain like Project 2025. Project 2025 was a big one for a couple of them too, and
Yes.
knowing, like, learning more about Christian nationalism and learning more about how serious and dangerous this ideology is, and the fact that they actually have a chance right now
Yes.
to come into power. And I don't know, it's not going to happen like right away, but once Trump enacts 2025 and he reclassifies all of those federal employees to make them
Yep.
partisan, where he can fire at will, that means he's going to be surrounded by yes men.
Yep.
And Trump is, and honestly, Trump is not, I don't believe Trump is a Christian. I don't believe he's a Christian nationalist. He's a narcissist in it for himself, regardless of what he says. Or actually, regardless of what people say about him, I don't think Trump's ever come out and actually said that he is a Christian. Like,
I saw a clip of him saying something. It was a clip, so I don't know where it came from, but it was just recently. Someone had compiled a clip of some things he had said, and he said something like, "I love my church." I'm thinking, what's that? Who's your pastor? What church are you talking about? Right. So I think he has said things. He's also said he loves the Bible, but of course, then he doesn't even know anything about 2 Corinthians and all that. So he has played it. He's played at it. Right.
Right. Well, and he gets asked faith questions all the time because,
yes.
One thing a Republican Party is known for is being Christian and involving their faith and their policy and all of that. So it's normal to be asked faith questions. I mean, I'm sure Kamala has been asked a few times too, but he always dodges them. And to me, the most blatant, obvious answer he ever gave to show that he's not actually a Christian was way back in 2015. I think he was speaking at some like Iowa faith conference, and they asked him if he'd ever asked God for forgiveness.
Yes, that's it.
And he said no. He said he'd never needed to. And we already knew about the affairs and like all this other stuff that we knew for a fact. Like, this is a scandalous man. And he's like, no, I've never needed to ask God for forgiveness.
Maybe if I made a mistake, I would, but
right. That should have been the deal breaker right there. Like, at least admit he's not a Christian. And they're like, no, he's God's chosen. I'm like, okay, y'all have lost your minds.
Yeah. There's also
they lost the plot a long time ago.
Yeah,
but
totally.
he doesn't. What's fascinating, I just realized. No, I didn't realize it today, but I like kicked around the idea in my head earlier. I was like, he answered the question of what his favorite Bible verse was.
Yeah.
And he basically was like, all of them. And then it was like, do you like the Old Testament or your New Testament? Guys, like both.
Yeah.
And he said it's very personal for him.
Sure. It's so
but then he endorsed an entire Bible. Right? Like, so if it's very personal to you, don't put your name on it and market it.
No, it's so personal. He had to put his name on it.
I agree with him. I don't talk about like my mystical experiences. I don't talk about my quote unquote personal relationship with Jesus. I talk theology or I talk philosophy. People don't need to know about my personal relationships. I also don't talk a lot about my personal relationships with my wife. And you don't hear me talk. We don't have a shared account. We don't got shared pictures.
Yeah.
So, but I can't then market an entire book about my wife and my story, our memoir. Like, you can't have it both ways. You can't put your name on a Bible and be like, oh, I'm going to market the shit out of this and sell it for a $60 split or whatever he's got.
Yeah.
And then say it's really personal to you. Those things don't add up.
Yeah. Not, and he also included the Constitution and the Bill of
Of
Rights and
course.
the
And
Pledge
the
of
Leave
Allegiance.
Greenwood song. Come on.
Yeah,
Believe
made
the
it
lyrics.
super nationalist in the process.
Yeah,
I'm glad it's
exactly.
so personal to you in your heart and soul. Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's odd.
Well, one of the things that happened too, this was in his first term, and I hope his only term. He was speaking at the National Prayer Breakfast, right? And the guy that spoke ahead of him had written a book about called, I think the title was Loving Your Enemies, right? And he had written this whole book about, and he had done research and everything too. It wasn't just like based on scripture. Like he had done research on actual, examples of just real world examples of how people had, brought peace or found common ground with people on the other side of the aisle, with other side of the issues, political issues, whatever it happens to be, and how learning to listen to your enemy and love your enemy was actually something practical that really worked, right? And that was his message. And then so he sits down, and Trump gets up and mocks the guy. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
That sounds really stupid. I don't think that'll work. And completely oblivious to the fact that what he's mocking is Jesus, right? This love your enemies thing. He's oblivious because he's never read the Bible. He doesn't know that Jesus is the one that tells us to love our enemies, but he's just going on and on about, no, I think that's stupid. That'll never work. I don't think we should love our enemies. I think we should fight them and blah, blah, blah. And the thing was, watching that clip, all the Christians in the room were laughing. And I watched that and I was like, holy shit, there you go. That's it. They're right in that moment choosing to reject Jesus, and they're going to go with Trump, right? They hear what he's saying because they do know what's happening, right? They do know he's directly contradicting the words of Jesus. It's like Jesus when he says, "You have heard it said," it quotes Moses and then says, "I say to you." Here's Trump standing up and saying, "You have heard it said," quotes Jesus and says, "But I say to you, kick those fuckers in the ass and win," right? That's what you should do. And everyone and all the Christians said amen. What the hell? So crazy to me.
What the hell,
But
indeed. But
we're
let's
in
talk
bizarre
about.
land.
We are in Bizarro Land. So when we are in Bizarro Land, we have to write books about it. April, you have a new book,
Yes, you have an amazing
Star
book.
Spangled
Yeah.
Jesus. I can only imagine what it's about. I guess, like, I mean, why did you write it, and why did you? I mean, what was that whole process like, and why was it so important to you?
Yeah, so I wrote it. I'd been starting to speak out against Christian nationalism because it's dangerous. And I believe it's a perversion of both Christianity and the Constitution.
Yeah.
And it's a danger to the country and the faith. So I started seeing it more and more. And I realized when I was watching January 6th live on CNN as it was
Live.
unfolding before
Yes.
my eyes.
Same here.
And then like in the aftermath, when they started revealing, who was involved, who were the people that were being arrested. Like initially when I was watching it, it was easy for me to be like, oh my gosh, those people are crazy. Like, who are those people? Like, they're violent. And I saw like the Jesus flags, like, and they
Yeah.
were praying and they were doing a lot of Christian things. But to me, I was able to separate myself out of that and been like, oh, those people are not, they've never been Christian, or, like the usual things we try to do.
Yeah.
And then my spouse and I recognized two people that were one of the more infamous insurrectionists that got arrested.
Hey, I know you.
Yeah,
Damn.
they came on
Really?
the screen. I was like,
Wait a
I
second.
went to church with her. Like this woman went to church
Dude.
to my dad's church,
That's
and then
wild.
Beecher knew the zip tie guy from youth
Dude.
group in Georgia.
Gosh.
And
zip
we
tie
were
guy.
like, what? That was when I realized, like, oh my gosh, I was a Christian nationalist the whole time.
Yes.
Because I knew that my faith had already been very intertwined with my political ideology, but it was like a light bulb had gone off. And I was like, wow, Christian nationalism is so sneaky and subtle that it hides in plain sight of
Yep.
American evangelicalism, specifically white American evangelicalism. And that's why it's so hard to fight, because I just believed I was being a good Christian by loving God, loving people, even though exclusions applied, and then voting Republican.
Asterisks,
Like I
yes.
literally believed only Christians could only vote Republican. And if they voted Democrat, they were misled, or maybe they weren't even really Christians, and they definitely
course.
were not people you could trust.
Mhm.
So I wrote this book, one, because when I started speaking out about it, when I started to, a lot of the pushback that I would get was like, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You were never really a Christian. You were
Of
never a
course.
Republican." Um, but I was. I was very
Yeah.
much that. So and like I worked at the 700 Club. I sang a song, "America Say Jesus," which is very Christian nationalist,
Yeah.
on the Jim Baker show, and I went on an "America Say Jesus" like national tour with my dad in a bus that had "America Say Jesus" all over it. Um, I'd campaigned for Mitt Romney, and like the reason why I was like, we have to vote for the Republicans because we need to put God back in the White House. I was willing to overlook that he was Mormon.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, like as we all were. And so I was like, I'm just going to put this in a book because you can put a lot more nuance in the book too. And when I make like, a 60-second video, it's hard to, you just can't say everything that you want to
Yeah.
say. And
Yeah.
I talk a lot about my dad in the book, because he was obviously a huge influence on me, but he had passed away in 2011.
Mm.
Um, and I personally have not really talked a lot prior to the book publicly about him because I didn't know how to talk about him without, you know, not making him look bad, but just like
Right.
saying some hard truths about him that
Yeah.
I didn't want the world to like go up. Like he's not here to defend himself. And I still
Right.
really love my dad and I had a very close relationship with him. So it was like reconciling that I believed my dad was a good person and had a good heart, but he also caused a lot of harm. And I also caused a lot of harm because I believed all the same things that he did and
Right.
perpetuated it. And so it was just, I don't know, I just felt like it was a story that I needed to get out there because I feel like in book form, when you can actually put all the nuance in there and not paint all, Christian nationalists or conservative Christians with a broad brush and say like these are all bad people, because I don't think that's true. I think most of them are good
Mhm.
people that
Yeah.
believe they're doing the right thing. They're
Mhm.
causing a lot of harm and their intent does
Mhm.
not negate that, but they're good, but I do believe that they have the intention of doing good. And so I was hoping by putting this in a book and talking about my personal story and things that I realized that I was doing that was harmful and beliefs that I held that were harmful, that it's almost like putting up a mirror and that
Yes.
they could see themselves in my story. And then on the flip side, if people have loved ones that have got sucked into the MAGA, really Christian nationalist movement who feel like they have to vote for Trump because of Jesus, I'm hoping it gives them tools. Like I have like all the tactics of Christian nationalism. I basically like peel back the curtain and get into the mindset of what I believed when I was a Christian nationalist and why I pushed for the policies that I did, like what I was thinking. Because when you know what someone's thinking, it's easier to get them to think differently because the things to
Yeah.
say that would
Yeah.
cause doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah. And I thank you for mentioning, this thing about this is such a hard thing for so many of us. Um, either if like maybe we started off voting conservative and we grew up Christian nationalists, maybe we wouldn't have called it that, but now we realize, oh my gosh, that's what I was. But even if you didn't, maybe you've always voted Democrat, but either way, you have family members, right? You have friends or people that you know and love that are going to vote probably for Trump, right?
Mhm.
And how do you talk to them? I think this is one of the hardest things for people to deal with, right? We
Mhm.
get these kind of questions all the time from people like, how do I talk to my mom or my dad or my brother or my sister? Because you know what I mean? They kind of have, drank the Kool-Aid and they're not bad people. And you're right, they're not bad people. But they have believed certain things and they are blind to other things, right? There's things they're unaware of because the source of the media that they're consuming will never show them certain clips, will never tell them, the actual news. Like, I wonder how many of these people voting for Trump are completely unaware that Fox News had to pay almost $1 billion because they lied about the election thing, right? They don't even know because they watch
Right.
Fox News and Fox News didn't report that, right?
Right.
So those kinds of things, right? So I mean, how do you talk? I mean, do you have still have family members and friends that are pro Trump, and how do you talk to them? Do you talk to them? Do you have any advice for how to have those conversations?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, the family members that I've talked to that were pro Trump are not pro Trump anymore.
Good.
If I still talk to them, I've had some more extended family I'm not as close to, or loved ones I'm not as close to, that don't really want anything to do with us anymore because they're in that world still. And and they perceive me as a threat.
Yes.
I'm a threat to their beliefs because I have carved a new path for myself,
You've
and
been
they
led
can't.
astray, April.
Right. And when you grow up in that world, you're taught to only surround yourself with people that are good and pretty much think just like you. And if you allow any outside perspective or any doubt to, sneak in, then you could wake up one day and be an atheist and go to hell. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to just keep everyone at arm's length that thinks differently.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really hard to do. I did interview someone. I didn't know them, but they were recommended, and they were a Trump supporter. That was a Christian, and just tried to have a conversation with them. And what I noticed mostly was anything you brought up that should be a deal breaker. Like, hey, you're a Christian, and so like, let's talk about January 6th, or let's
Mhm.
talk about grab them by the privates, or let's talk about all these different things. I'm looking for where's the line, where's the what is the deal breaker, and it's slippery, right? They've all like, well, he didn't mean that, or well, that's taken out of context, and like, there's always an excuse for it, right? It really is like this cognitive dissonance where I don't know what it's going to take. I hope you're right, April. That well, I guess with an asterisk, if Trump wins, I hope that doesn't happen. But if Trump does win, and he does start the largest mass deportation in the history of our country, and they're building concentration camps in the desert and sending people to live there, I'm hoping that that will be enough for these people that did vote for him to say, "Wow, that's too much, and we got to stop this." I hope. I just haven't seen the line yet. I mean, I want to be an optimist, but I'm not. I'm a pessimist, and the definition of a pessimist is an optimist with experience. And so
Yeah.
far, my experience has been that
I don't know if
that
that's
like there's
true.
just no line. Like
Yeah.
I just keep seeing them excuse it and excuse it and excuse it, right?
And I
And
do
sort of
think
like,
that's true for the
yeah,
people that are really in it, like really in it. Like
yeah,
I mean, a lot of these people have cut off family members for
yes,
not voting for Trump. So
yes,
they have skin in the game in the fact that like if they were to suddenly not if they were to suddenly realize that Trump is not a good guy and he's actually causing a lot of harm, then they have to reconcile with the harm that they have caused to probably like their own children or their spouses or their parents. And I think for a lot of people, they would rather, you know, dig their heels in and stick their head in the sand than admit that they were wrong, especially when the cost was so high. I will say, like, things that I have seen help when I have talked to Trump supporters is just asking them questions,
yeah,
not coming at, not saying like, well, this is wrong because da 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 da, da, but
yeah, yeah,
saying
yeah,
like,
yeah,
well, why would you continually to vote for the Republican when abortion rates actually go down? Why would
right,
you be for abortion bans when like women are literally dying from
yeah,
sepsis?
yes.
Like what would you say a woman should do in that scenario?
Yeah, and
Like
maybe even connect it to, like, if it was your wife or your daughter or your sister, right? Or your
yeah,
someone
like
you
what
love.
would you do if that was your wife? And
Yeah,
like exactly, like and not in a combative way because I think
right.
they want to fight.
Yes.
So it just you have to be like calm and just, hey, like what would you say? Like, and especially finding where we agree. Like I agree. I want the abortion rate to go down. I think that's a
Yeah,
very noble cause. I
yeah,
would love to live in a world where abortion was unnecessary.
yeah,
What are things we can do to make abortion unnecessary and
yeah,
help, to lower those things and like come at it from find common ground and then ask questions from there. That's what I've seen be the most effective. And obviously there are some people that are just a lost cause for now, but
yeah,
even still, it might just plant a tiny little doubt in the back of their mind.
yeah. Well, it's also, I will say, unclear, I think. I think if I was still a Republican who was a one-issue voter, right? I have to vote for the Republican because abortion, right?
Mhm.
It's still kind of unclear, like, is a vote for Trump a vote for criminalizing abortion? Because Trump has personally said he doesn't support, the abortion ban. He said that about what
Mhm.
was going on in Florida,
Right.
because he realized, oh, this is unpopular. But then you have JD Vance, who's like, oh no, we're going to track women's pregnancies, and I'll have a spreadsheet somewhere, right? So it's kind of unclear. Like, is a vote for Trump a vote like for against abortion or not? Like, I don't think we know really.
Well, in
So
either way, rates. I mean, haven't rates gone up since Roe v. Wade's been gotten rid
rates
of?
go down during Democratic presidencies, right? The
Right.
Yeah,
graph
but
showed
since
that.
Roe was overturned, the national abortion rate's gone up. That's true.
Yeah, that's what's so weird.
I
That's
mean,
what's
if
so
you want them
crazy
to
about
go
it.
down, like, I mean, maybe it's counterintuitive for them, I guess, right? Like, but it's kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I know we need to have laws. I know we need to have things like that, but like when we banned, it's not like we did the drug war and banned drugs and like people stopped smoking weed. It's not like, and that's their argument for like, well, we can't ban guns. And so if that's your argument for that, why don't you apply that to abortion? Like, I don't think it works with the gun thing because
Yeah,
other
banning
countries.
guns, people will still find a way to get guns. Exactly. So
Okay,
when
so
you ban
then,
abortion, people will still find a way to get abortions. They just won't be safe and legal. Right.
yeah,
Mhm.
as statistics have shown, and that's not to mention like we know that conservatives get abortions. Like,
Yeah, of
come on,
course.
like it's not like abortions are like stuck to one demographic or one population, whether you're conservative, liberal, religious, or otherwise. Like
And
that's just
and
the
so
reality.
many, Republicans have admitted that they used IVF or IVF
Mhm.
procedures to
Sure.
conceive. And so, like, well, and see, to me, that's the most inconsistent part of the thinking, right? Because I used to think that way, right? Life begins at conception, and at any stage, you're taking a human life and all that. It's like, well, then if you take that perspective, then you would have to be against IVF. But again, that's unpopular. So you have Republicans saying, no,
It
we're against abortion, but we're for IVF.
it doesn't make
Huh?
sense. I
Like, you're
mean,
just not consistent
life
thinking.
doesn't even begin at conception.
Not according to the Hebrew scriptures. That's why it's free and
Well,
legal in
no, I
Israel.
mean scientifically, like sperm are alive. I wrote a satire
True. That's
piece.
right.
Like
Your sperm are
if
alive. Yeah.
they're alive, like biologically, they're alive. What are we even talking about? Like
Yeah.
I mean, don't I mean, aren't there like natural abortions? Like most of the time, like
Yeah.
women will just get rid of something that's
If there's
technically
a
like
non-viable pregnancy, yeah.
there's a I mean, it happens all the time. Like I'm
Yeah.
with you, April. I understand what you're saying when you're like, I want abortion to go down. Yeah, I wish that like those things didn't happen. I wish that wasn't a procedure medically that we would need to have, but it's also a good option for a lot of I mean, it's a medically necessary procedure for a lot of things that
Yeah.
happen in a pregnancy. It just kind of is. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
wish
no,
people
totally.
understood that. Yeah.
But when you're talking to someone who believes it's always murder,
Yeah.
though, you've
There's
got to
no
start from a totally different angle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. No, I get that. I just wish they didn't start there, and I wish they understood the history too, which is another big wrench in the whole thing.
Yeah.
Evangelicals did not care about Roe v. Wade when it came into
no.
being.
No, it took 3 years for them to care, and they didn't care
They
because of
only cared because of school
racism. Yeah.
segregation was
Yeah.
not politically expedient any longer. That's
Mhm.
just the reality. That
Totally
might not be
political. Yeah.
reality if you're a modern evangelical, but that's historically the reality. And so
Yeah.
it kind of like raises the question of like, why didn't they care at the start? Because it started as a political issue, not necessarily a moral one. And it has morphed for people to a moral one, but that's a dubious conversation. Do you cover that in the book? Is that something you get into in the book?
Abortion?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do. I have a whole chapter on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what kind of reaction have you gotten from the book so
Oh
far?
God, I can only imagine. I mean, most positive, right? But
Good
come
It's
and
on.
been
bad.
mostly positive. I've had a
Yeah.
few one-star reviews, and
Yeah.
I'm I'm 99.9% sure that they did not read my book.
No, of course not.
Um,
No, they never do.
but actually, I think the coolest thing I've heard so far, I've heard from 3 different people that one they either gave it to their Republican Trump supporting spouse or moms, and the 3 of them actually read my book and decided not to vote for Donald Trump after reading it.
Wow, good.
So I was like, hey,
if you can reach one person, April.
I
If you
know,
reach
I know.
only
I
one
kind
person.
of, it honestly feels like I have, like, I'm still doing mission work, just like my
Yes.
mission field are Christian
Hmm.
nationalists now. I'm gonna like pull them out.
That's
But
right.
yeah, no, it's been really good. I've also heard from people that didn't really know much about Christian nationalism or could not understand why they're doing what they're doing right now on a national level.
Yeah.
And reading my book and understanding the mindset just gave them an understanding of why this is happening. Because it's, I mean, and there's the thing, it's a lot of cognitive dissonance. So if you don't grow up in this movement,
Yeah.
it does not make logical sense from the outside looking in. It's, you could see the hypocrisy. It's very, very loud. But that, I just, I explain, when you're in it though, you can't see the hypocrisy. You hold a lot of tension. Like your beliefs do contradict each other often,
Mhm.
but you can't see it. Like you're so in it that you can't really see it. And
That's right.
everything around you, you're in an echo chamber.
Mhm.
Sometimes you're going to church multiple times a week. Your pastor's saying the same things from the pulpit. You watch Fox News, you listen to conservative talk radio, you watch TBN or CBN or whatever Christian media. And so literally everything you're consuming and everything in your world just reinforces your beliefs. And if you ever hear an outside perspective, it's immediately demonized. If anybody ever leaves the group, they're immediately demonized. So you just are
Yeah.
taught and trained, especially if you're born into it,
Yeah.
to just be a good little soldier, like literally we sing a song like,
Onward,
I'm in the
Christian soldier.
Lord's army.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
yeah.
Like you're taught, like,
Yes.
when you go to
Little kids.
school, you are
Yeah.
to be in the school to save the souls of the other children in that public school and to be a light and to fight the teachers preaching evolution. Like it's
Yes.
and there's a
God's
lot of
not dead.
spiritual,
God's
a
not
lot of
dead.
spiritual warfare talk,
Uh-huh.
which now I think is kind of turning into actual warfare talk from the more like menacing Christian nationalist men out there. So it's
Yes.
really scary. And a lot of these people believe they're on this holy quest. And I do believe that some people that are more powerful, that are making money off of this, they're probably bad faith actors. I could totally see that. But I do believe most of the people that are consuming this really believe it. And you've got to, you just have to know how to handle someone who genuinely believes what they're saying. But that's why, because there is so much cognitive dissonance, asking those questions that pull at their conflicting thought was the thing that worked for me. And it didn't happen right away, because I would, double down and say my talking points. We all were taught the same talking points. So we knew what to say. Like literally we're trained how to defend our faith.
Yes.
Because they know there's cognitive dissonance. So you have to be taught how to like dodge all these doubts that like literally don't make sense. But that was eventually what worked for me. It was like little things over and over and over several years. Eventually, the straw broke the camel's back.
Yeah,
That's tough. That's tough. Real quick, Keith, because I feel that's how I try to do little things, and I'm punching myself out. You ever see a boxer punch themselves out?
Yeah.
And then they get knocked out. That's how I feel. Like you just try to do little things over and over, over and over, and it's just like almost a war of attrition. Like it worked for you, but for other people, they keep fighting it until the person, I was like, I'm not even going to talk to y'all anymore.
Yeah,
and I think that's a fair, eventually that is a fair place to go, and setting those boundaries, because it's at the end of the day, it is not our job to change someone's mind.
Totally.
But I do think that personal relationship is going to change someone's mind more than
It
them
has to be
watching
that,
some
right?
documentary.
Yeah. It's got to be personal relationship, and that's what contact hypothesis teaches us. Is like you actually got to know these people. You could hit them with facts, you could hit them with statistics. 1 in 100 might be like, oh, that makes sense, but most of the time it's like, no, I gotta, I'm LGBTQ, so I gotta have someone who hates that, like actually be like, oh, but I like Matt. So then they have the cognitive they have to wrestle with that, be like, okay, that seems to work because they have that personal relationship. It doesn't always work, but it seems to be the only thing that really kind of nudges them.
Yeah, you have to think about, like in your case, April, and in my case, we were, kind of raised in that evangelical, I was in the NRA. I was a member of the NRA. I listened to Rush Limbaugh.
Good standing member, I'm sure.
I mean, Keith. I was deep into it, right? Just like you, April. I mean, I wasn't, you win, by the way, like 700 Club, singing nationalist songs. Like, okay, you win that contest. but when you're deep in it and then you come out of it, you have to think about like, well, what was it that helped you wake up and recognize that you were trapped in this kind of thing, right? And you look around and realize, oh my gosh, right? I'm like, my thing was, I realized I was more American than Christian, right? The things that I thought were so important were things Jesus never talked about. And the things that Jesus talked about were not things I ever really was concerned about, right? And it was just like recognizing, like, whoa, this is a total disconnect here. I need to go back and rethink it. But that wasn't because someone argued with me. It wasn't because
Right.
somebody threw a bunch of scriptures at my face and I was like, oh my gosh, you're right,
Right.
Um, and usually, right, it is more personal, right? It's sort of like internally you're asking questions. Internally, you're going, well, what about that? Or, well, what about this? So you're slowly noticing things. Things are slowly building over time. And then eventually you internally sort of like connect the dots and say, oh crap, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess we can contribute some things, that hopefully asking questions, hopefully pointing things out to people, hopefully remaining in relationship with people in spite of the fact that they're kind of, they drank the Kool-Aid. But
Yeah.
eventually it's got something that there has to be something within them that they start asking the question
Yeah.
themselves. Unless they ask the question, it doesn't matter what you're doing.
Right. Well, it's kind of like we were taught in Sunday school, when you just to win souls, you can just
Yeah.
plant a little seed, even if it's just a quick little
Yeah.
Jesus loves you or whatever it is. You plant that seed, and then you can hope that one day the plant will start to sprout and then it'll bloom.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it really is like I'm taking a lot of the things I was taught in evangelicalism and just kind of applying it to this new kind of evangelism, which is weird to say because I like the whole
Yeah.
idea of a ministry, like it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. But
Right.
in a way, it's kind of the same thing though, and I kind of feel like I'm actually helping more people doing this now
Yes.
than the
Yes.
other. And I will say, I think there's something deep down a lot of these people feel. I think they have to feel a slight amount of guilt in supporting Donald Trump. I'm talking about like
Sure.
people who are, like ministers or Christians because of how hard they're going against Christians voting for Kamala.
Right.
Like because like they're like I don't know if you saw, but I am currently at the moment going viral on Twitter.
I saw that you and AOC are friends now.
I know AOC retweeted it. I know we're not friends, but in my mind,
Oh, sure you are.
we're gonna count that as like we got a drink or something.
You're closer than
Um,
I am.
but it is actually insane how much hate and like vitriol's being aimed at me right now from
Oh,
like
yeah.
all these big right-wing accounts.
Mm.
And literally like what I said is not that remarkable. I said like I'm a Christian, I'm a wife, I'm a mom. I'm sick of my faith being weaponized for hate and oppression.
Yes.
And like Christian nationalism is dangerous, so I voted for Kamala. Very I don't think that is an extreme thing to say
No.
personally.
No.
It's probably one of the more tamer things I've said on social media actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um but, like, they are losing their minds. They it's insane. I honestly d It's wild to me how something so simple and unremarkable, and the only thing I'm doing is something that half of the country is also going to be doing
That's
come
right.
Tuesday. And
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what scares them though, right? It really scares them. They're like, "Oh my gosh, right? We're gonna lose this," right? And then they already have this persecution mentality, right? So when they
yeah,
see Trump being mocked on late night television or, attacked on CNN or whatever, then they also will see, just like Christians, right? We know what it's like to be persecuted for standing up for truth or whatever, right? So they connect it in their minds that, "Oh, we're the victims." But I want to ask you this. So we talked a lot about sort of the fear of our anxiety of, oh my God, what if he wins? Please God, don't
mhm,
let him win. I hope he doesn't win. But even if Kamala Harris, if she wins and Trump loses the election,
mhm,
um, we have not defeated Christian nationalism. The Heritage Foundation will not fold up shop and go away, right?
mhm,
And
Well,
when
we
you look at
tried.
yeah. Oh
yeah,
well. Oh well. And it's also, I mean, look at what they've accomplished. Christian nationalists, Christian, people that want a Christian theocracy. Look what they've accomplished with Biden in the White House, right?
right,
In Oklahoma, right? They're what is it? They're reading the Bible, right? They're buying Bibles, right? To Trump Bibles to give to all the kids. In Louisiana, they're putting the Ten Commandments up in all the classrooms, right? So they've made, and this happened in other places too, where they're replacing, I think in Texas, they're replacing counselors, school counselors with Christian chaplains.
Yeah.
So they've already made a lot of progress in their minds, right? Without having the president's, support. So they're not going to go away. They're not going to stop trying to do these kinds of things, right? So we're always going to need to be, I talk about this all the time, like you're in the resistance, like it or not, you're part of the resistance. And being part of the resistance means pointing these things out and speaking up and saying, hey, if you call yourself a Christian, I am a Christian, but that's not what I want. I don't want the Bible taught in school. I don't want the Ten Commandments. I don't want Christian chaplains instead of school counselors, right? So we have to continue to resist. We have to continue to realize, like, I just don't want people to like, oh, Kamala won, yay.
Right.
And we can all just forget this, because they're not going to forget it. They're just going to change Project 2025 to Project 2029 and, roll it forward.
I think that's a smart. I think some people we probably did that with Obama a little bit.
Yep.
It's like you get the guy you want, and then you kind of get complacent.
You get
I mean,
lulled. Yeah.
I wonder what they would think, because I'm a credentialed teacher and I substitute from time to time. I don't do it very often, but I wonder what they would think if I was substituting in Oklahoma and I just started teaching the Bible. Like, what makes them think, like, just because you're teaching the Bible, that you're going to be teaching the Bible the way they want? Are they also going to, like, okay, so you get the Bible in school, you get the Ten Commandments, and then what? Like, you don't just teach the Bible. Like, you exegete the Bible, you interpret the Bible, you teach theology alongside of it. Like, are they gonna also have to write laws that says, oh, this is how you teach the Bible now? Or are you going to teach the history of the biblical development, history of theological thought?
Right. So, for example, let's say it was a Southern Baptist Christian school. Would they hire a Presbyterian or an Episcopal to teach the Bible? No, of course they wouldn't.
Go hire a gay affirming Methodist.
Yeah, exactly. Would you hire a gay Methodist pastor to come preach it, teach the Bible in your Southern Baptist Christian school? No, but you have no control over who's teaching the Bible in the public school, right? It's just teach the Bible. Okay, so Coach
I would feel awkward teaching the Bible
Yeah.
in school, but as a protest, like, what makes people? Most teachers are probably pretty liberal. What makes them think like,
They should sign up and say, "Oh, hey, I'll teach the Bible to your
I'll go
school."
teach the Bible? Oh, you're not gonna like that, are you?
Yeah, that's the funny thing, is there's so many ways that you could teach the Bible and
Right.
Yeah.
just create a bunch of agnostics or
That's
or
right.
like there's because everyone cherry picks. There's multiple. There's a reason why there's 45,000 Christian denominations worldwide, because there is not one biblical worldview. There are a bunch of different worldviews within the same book.
Yes.
So it's literally just a play for power, and it's them trying to just flex their muscles in this world, being like, see, we're the Christian party. We're the Christian party. And then
but what does that
when
even mean?
Democrats say, hey, you shouldn't be teaching the Bible in public schools, then they point their fingers. You see, they hate Christians. They hate God.
Yeah.
It's all part of their way of making one side the side of Jesus and the other side the side of Satan. And it just furthers the good versus evil mentality that they're trying to push on their followers.
Yeah. Oh, so I have a question. Because the root of this whole Christian nationalist movement, this whole Christian theocracy thing that the Heritage Foundation is a part of, and many, many others are a part of, it really you can trace it back in America to this myth, right? America is a Christian nation. We were founded as a Christian nation. Do you deal with that in the book? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally believed that America was a Christian nation. That's what I was taught growing up. That's what everyone around me believed. And that's one of the main reasons to continue to vote Republican too, because so when we believe that America is a Christian nation, we believe that God supernaturally blessed America through all of our wars, through even the founding, like even the way that we colonized the land. We kind of
Native Americans.
We kind of turn our heads on the whole genocide of indigenous people. And if anything, it was framed as, yeah, but think of like now they get to go to heaven because we made them Christian. We told them about Jesus. And so it was very history was very whitewashed, and it was very much like America was always the good guy because God was
Right.
on our side, and that's why we've been so successful. And then like in the last several decades, when just other 9/11 has, happened, and there were several prominent evangelical leaders that said, well, that was God turning his head to let bloodshed come to America because of the sin in our country,
Well, Jerry
because of
Falwell said that. Yeah.
because of gay people or
Because of the gays.
abortionists and
Yeah.
like all this stuff. And so like we genuinely believed that the reason why anything bad happened in America, it was because we had allowed the country to slip down a path of unrighteousness, mainly focusing on abortion and gay
Mhm.
people.
Yes.
Now it's focused on trans people more than gay people. But when I was in it, it was homosexuality and abortion.
Yep.
And so the mindset is we vote for Republicans because they're against those things. We eventually overturn Roe v. Wade. We make abortion illegal. We make homosexuality illegal. And when we do that, God will bless our country again. And
Like it says in the Bible, right? It says that in the Bible somewhere, right? Oh, no,
yeah.
it doesn't.
Yeah. So like literally that's the mindset. And that's why you have such this devotion to Republican Party, because when you believe that abortion is always murder and that homosexuality is this like egregious sin, like the worst thing you could possibly do. And and they see
Abomination.
pride. Yeah, they see pride parades, and they
Yes.
see, the White House turn rainbow under Obama. That's like the most
Mm.
sinister thing we could ever do. And we just basically like welcomed Satan and like threw him a
Yes.
party. And so
Yes.
that's why you have to vote Republican, because like literally though, that's what people believe. That's what I believed. Like I
Yeah.
remember looking at the rainbow flag too on the White House and kind of being like, oh, now they're just rubbing it in our faces and kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
being salty about it.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Well,
Yeah.
John's got a good question, Keith. If you want to,
Yeah.
get to that, he says, "Why is successful being seen as being blessed? Aren't Christians supposed to be not of this world?" That's
Mhm.
that gets
This
into.
is
Do you get into some of the prosperity gospel stuff like that?
I mean, I touch on it briefly. I mean, as far
Yeah.
as like the prosperity of the country.
Mhm.
Um, but this is a perfect example of that cognitive dissonance that we held, because we were also pro-life but also pro-death penalty, because there's this
Right.
constant
Ooh, yeah.
tension, because really the New Testament and the Old Testament, or the Hebrew Bible, are at odds with a lot of what the worldview is, even of who
Yes.
we believe God is. We have conflicting characters.
Yes, we do.
We also believe that the Bible was literal and the literal word of God. There are some people out there that believe like it's actually, you could actually attribute it all to Jesus.
The Father, the Son, and the Holy Bible. Yes.
Yeah, right. And so when you believe all of that, you have to believe these things at the same time. And honestly, the whole America being Christian thing, really, it does not make sense when I'm out of it. I go into a lot of detail in the book about this exact idea of why, we put so much emphasis on America as this Christian nation and being successful.
Mhm.
But this is like the cognitive dissonance of, I am a Christian. If something bad happens to me, it's because Satan is trying to attack me because I'm doing good. Right?
Yes. Yes.
Or on the flip side, if something good happens to me, it's because God is blessing me because I'm doing good. And there's never really this like or God's, testing me because of my sin, or whatever. But there's all like it's never any self-reflection for the most part.
No.
And
No.
it just goes to a bigger national level too. If something bad happens to our country, it's not because of anything we're doing.
No. No.
It's
Not because we're
because those
exploiting third world
people,
countries and stealing their
yeah.
resources. And yeah, exactly. That's not what's happening. It's the enemy attacking us or God testing us. Right.
Mhm. Right.
Did you ever
Yeah.
plan on writing a book? What was that process like? Is this your first book?
Yeah, I mean, it's my first published book, unless you
Okay.
count the one I wrote when I was 19 that was self-published. That was about
It's up
how
to you.
What
I'm
was
the
that about?
only that teen Christians were dying, not literally dying, like dying
Oh.
figuratively,
Okay.
called A Dying Breed, where I rail against the ACLU and Christians who are too nice.
Oh,
So
I
it's like
want
my
to read
Christian
that.
nationalist book. So now I wrote an anti-Christian nationalist book.
Is it still in
Oh.
print or did you pull that?
What?
Is it still in print?
No. I mean,
Oh,
it was
okay.
self-published many, many
Right.
moons ago, and I dear God, I hope it's nowhere out there because it's terrible.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy writing this book? I mean, I know some writings can be a slog. Sometimes you just get through it. Sometimes you
Especially the
just
Yeah.
first
vomit
one.
it out in like 2 weeks.
Your first one
Yeah,
too.
there were moments where I really enjoyed writing this book when I was writing like my stories and stuff. Um, I spent hours and hours and hours on research because I wanted to have like actual stories to back up my own claim because I didn't want someone to read it and be like, this is only anecdotal. So it's
Right.
like my personal story, and then here's where it's happened in history too.
Yeah.
Good.
So there was a lot of like hours and research that I did, which honestly I kind of enjoyed that too because I actually got my degree in journalism, so I felt like I was finally putting that to good use. But it was definitely stressful writing the book. I would say it was
Yeah.
emotionally, it took quite the toll, especially talking about my dad. And it's the first time I've
Yeah.
really been really honest about him, and I still have a lot of grief. Um, just around that. So I had my first panic attack ever in the process of writing this because I was like, am I betraying him? Is he
Yeah.
gonna be disappointed? Like, what would he think?
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, it was kind of therapy for me, like a very long, drawn out, hard, took a lot of work therapy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, overall, it was almost a 2-year process
Mhm.
from
Yeah.
you know conception to print.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Cool.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it was worth it. I think it's wonderful that you've got this book out there. And like you said, it's kind of weird. You're doing this sort of like counter evangelism thing. But we need it. We need it. There's so many people, and hopefully after this election, there'll be even more evangelical Christians who would be willing to like read the book and follow what you're doing and rethink this whole support of Donald Trump. And I think this is the thing too. Like, I'm hoping this day is coming, right? That one day there will be this reckoning that evangelical Christians and all these MAGA churches and all this stuff that they'll have to come to a point and say, "What? Oh my God, what have we done?" Right?
hmm
That there would be a true repentance, right?
yeah,
They're always talking about repentance, like you need to repent, but that repentance that they would experience that, right? True repentance. I don't mean it just in a like, aha, we were right, you're wrong, but a genuine
hmm
repentance of like, I wrote a blog about this, like, we have to have space and create that safe space for family members and friends when they do wake up. I hope they do, and they realize, oh crap, you know what I mean? I supported something that was really awful, and I'm sorry about that, right? And they experience that repentance. That we don't like dunk on them. We're not like, aha, nah, you were wrong. But we
Maybe the
really
first
give them
day.
grace. No, but I mean, we have to. We have to give them the grace to
Yeah.
welcome them back in, right? To let them know, hey, you
yeah,
know what? I still care about you, and there's still room for you, and all that. And I'm hoping that we can experience that in some measure, because I think it will happen. I think there are
yeah,
going to be a whole lot of Christians who finally do wake up eventually and
hmm
realize, yeah, this was not a good thing.
yeah. And
I think
I that's
yeah.
kind of what I want to do too, like provide a soft landing for
Yeah,
people, so that they can know like there's going to be community waiting for them
yeah,
whenever they do change.
yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Let's
That
hope.
I mean, it's a balance for sure. Like some people have really been harmed by this. Like some people won't go
Yeah,
back. Like the women and the girls who are dying because of
yeah,
abortion bans right now. Like,
yeah,
I mean, it's tough. It's like, yeah, I hear y'all for sure. But I also, yeah, it's tough. It really is tough because it's emotional for a lot of people, for people who,
mhm,
for all sorts of different reasons. But I think by and large, people are forgiving, people are merciful. Like there's people on the left who are just as fundamentalist and annoying and whatever, and they won't ever accept it. And that's, but I think by and large, people will be like, hey, better late than never. Welcome.
yeah,
like welcome to the other side of this thing. And for the most part, I think there will be community for those people. I wish they'd understand that. Like
yeah,
I think most people, you're right, April. Most people who are voting for Trump, they're not bad people. Like and plus the line of good and evil runs down the middle of any of us. Like
that's
hmm
I
right.
forget who said that. It was a Russian guy. Um but it's true.
Tolstoy,
Like no,
Dostoevsky, one of
it
those.
was
Yeah.
Alexander something.
Solzhenitsyn.
Um Yeah, that's the one. Thank you.
Yeah.
See, between both of us, we got one whole brain.
Yeah, you go.
But I mean, you got me distracted by the Russian name. I think for the most part, we realize like, hey, they're good people. It's just propaganda is propaganda.
That's right.
And it's powerful for a reason. And people have been caught up in this just like they've been caught up in the past in movements like this, German
Yeah.
nationalist movements and things like that. We're good Christians, get caught up in,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say doing bad things, but just sitting idly
Supporting
by
bad things and making
and
bad things possible.
and just being silent too. Being silent
Yeah.
always
Mhm.
impacts the negatively the people who are being victimized and supports tacitly the people who are doing the victimizing. It
Mhm.
just does, because the people in power will stay in power and they'll abuse the power. So, um,
Yeah, well,
you're
hopefully,
do
like with your book, April, because that part of your story is, hey, I used to believe this stuff.
being a
I
part
was
of it.
one of these people, right? So,
Sure.
having grace, you can have grace for yourself, and even telling your story of like, hey, I used to think like you. I used to feel this
Which
way. I
takes
used to think
bravery,
this
by
way.
the way. Someone
Yeah,
commented
having
earlier, that
having
takes
that
bravery.
vulnerability and courage, I think, goes a long way to making that space and creating that space for people.
Yeah. Yeah, and the book's also funny 'cause, I that's kind of
Yeah,
how I
yeah,
cope
comedy
is
is your thing. Yeah,
with humor.
yeah,
Yeah, so I also feel like when you take it from a comedic approach, it can disarm people just a little bit because
I
it's like
agree.
you're laughing and your guard goes down, so maybe you can accept the message a little bit better.
Yeah, I wish
Yes,
I
it's not a
that's what I
finger
like
wagging. Yeah,
that's that's what I like about your page and what you do online and everything is that even if I were still a Christian, and I'm not, but even if I were, like, I can still go and, you have to be a little bit deprecating.
yeah,
So what you're critiquing, I might still be in and be like, "Well, that's still funny." It's like when the Babylon Bee used to be funny before they
Right.
got super
a couple of
cringy and they
weeks
did
before, yeah, when they
it was a
first
long
started.
time ago, believe me. But they did funny things about, like, worship music and,
Yeah,
and it
Yeah.
was funny because those things were true. I played worship my whole life, and it was like, yeah, those the infinite bridge, stuck in an infinite bridge, that was a
I
funny
can
article.
sing of your love
Yeah, just
forever and
so you
ever.
have but it's like there does seem to be like we have kind of lost that ability to like be self-deprecating, and
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
love the humor that you point out is like even if I was in that world, it's like it's still funny because it's true. Because we
Yeah.
do those annoying things even if you land in that camp still. Like we're still, yeah, we do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Well, this has been awesome, April. Thank you so much for taking time to spend some time with us here this morning on the Heretic Happy Hour live stream. Thank you, everybody, for your comments and your questions. We really appreciate that.
Yeah,
We have,
and you could pick
yeah,
up your book everywhere, right, April?
that's right.
Yeah, wherever books are sold, Amazon, order online, Barnes& and Noble,
Yeah,
wherevs.
you should go to Barnes and Noble and request the book, right? Just say, hey, do you have
Well,
the
go to your
Yeah, some
local
of them carry
bookstore.
it, it just depends
Yeah.
on the store, but yeah, you
the
can always
manager?
request it. Also, requesting it at your local library can help
Yeah,
Yes,
too.
yes, do that.
yeah,
Mhm.
That's right. Yeah,
yeah.
thank you so much, April. Great
Yeah.
book, great channel. Love what you do. Keep doing it. And
Thank you.
we're gonna cross our fingers that we're gonna survive
Oh,
next
I
week.
know. Let's get through Tuesday. Hopefully
Oh,
it's something good.
I don't know if I have enough liquor in the house. I may have to go buy something.
Dude, trying to make us alcoholics,
Oh
all
Lord,
Ooh,
all of
ah,
us.
help. Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, this has been good. Well, thank you,
yeah.
April, and, hopefully we get to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of
Yeah.
course. Thanks for listening. Make sure you subscribe. Mushrooms. John's gonna be taking mushrooms. You gotta be careful about that, though. That could turn sideways on you. I got a whole story about
Hey,
that.
John, send me some of those.
Yeah, that's no, you don't want to do that. That's probably illegal.
In the mail? Probably a bad idea.
Yeah, we're gonna get demonetized now.
What do we do now? Do we dance?
We're out of here. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can dance all
Okay.
you want. Dance like no one's watching.